Right. My name's Evan Smith, as you're probably aware, co-chair of Avon Otakarau Network. That's the hat I'm wearing here today. For the past 2 years, on and around Labour Weekend, Avon Otakarau Network, or Avon, has organised the Spring River Festival in the east side of Christchurch. This wakahuia was carved and gifted to us as a symbol of that festival. There's a lot of symbolism in it, which I haven't got time to go into, but it's quite an important event for many people. We believe that over the last 2 years we've demonstrated that the festival has the potential to become a very successful annual opportunity to celebrate spring and to showcase the vitality and potential of the East to become the playground of the city. However, we need the commitment and the support of Council to grow this and make it a sustainable festival. I'm here today to seek that commitment and support. It is no secret that the wards of Hagley, Ferrymead and Burwood Pegasus were the most impacted by the earthquakes of 2010-2011. The very reason for this, the urbanisation of the Lower Avon and Heathcote floodplains, is also the key to the area's recovery, and that is the recognition and restoration of the enormous amenity value that the waterways and the coasts have to the city. For those living in the communities of the East, life has been, in many cases, continues to be absolute hell. Many of those communities have simply disintegrated, altogether disappeared, or fractured as a result of the red zoning. Those that remain are dealing with TC3 and flood management area issues, EQC and insurance issues, and very munted infrastructure. This, for most out east, is a very individualised private battle. The earthquakes brought communities together. The recovery has torn us apart. For many of those living in the other side of town, the East is viewed as the Badlands, the war zone, and they cordon it off in their psyche. You don't go there, it's out of sight and out of mind. People are disconnected within communities. The communities are disconnected from each other, and everyone is disconnected from the amenity of their environment. And there remains a strong disconnect across the city. Research shows that the psychosocial impacts of this are greatest 3 years out from the disaster. It is for this reason that Avon partners with Healthy Christchurch to organise the River of Flowers events along the rivers every 22nd of February, and weekend after next we'll be doing that again for the 3rd anniversary. And it's also for this reason that we feel that setting aside one weekend in spring each year as the Spring River Festival to reconnect the communities of the East, reconnect West and East, and reconnect people with our rivers is a priority and should be a priority for the Council. We have trialled 2 different formats for the Spring River Festival and believe that the attributes that work best include a focus on the rivers, estuary and beaches of the East and the communities that live there, a diversity of events so that there is something for everyone, whatever their age, interest or ability. You may have been issued a leaflet that gives some indication of what kind of events that we held in the first year. Then embrace areas such as sport and recreation with a whole variety of recreational activities, events that acknowledge culture and heritage along the river corridor, natural environment, gardens and food production, arts, science and entertainment, and community fairs and markets. In 2012, we coordinated over 40 events over 2 days. We need to make sure that program presents no conflicting key events and there's a logical geographical progression of events so that people maybe travel down the river as they go from one event to another so they don't conflict. We feel it's best held over 1 or 2 days on the weekends following Labour Weekend, not on Labour Weekend itself, because we want to see it integrated with other festivals. Festa has staked its claim on Labour Weekend and we fully support that. But it's absolutely critical to make these things happen that they are well-resourced, professionally organised and professionally marketed. Support to date from Council for the Spring River Festival concept has been extremely limited. We believe there is a strong case for Council to prioritise this festival to provide a much higher level of direct support of a variety of types, including event management support, which is the direct active support of the events management team, or alternatively, funding to contract professional event management services, which can be quite expensive. Logistical support. The council owns, reserves and venues, equipment and festival resources that it would be good to deploy in a festival of this kind. Accessing that is quite a bureaucratic nightmare at times, and it would be good to cut through some of that red tape to make things happen a lot easier. It's just become, in our experience, very hard to deliver an event like this. You spend most of your time trying to access funding and cut through red tape. We would like to see greater priority to funding festivals and events outside of business as usual and outside of the CBD. Take some risks with some more edgy transitional initiatives in areas of the city still heavily compromised in terms of infrastructure to assist them in their recovery. We need communications, marketing and PR support. The council has really good teams to do that sort of thing that could assist, to help secure the profile of the festival and help secure sponsorship. Finally, in terms of festival integration, it is possible to package festivals together so that there are economies of scale and you can leverage off each other. Imagine an annual spring festival season that runs from Labour weekend right through to show weekend and starts with Festa over the Labour weekend in the central city, weaves in Diwali, progresses to the Spring River Festival out in the east the following weekend, and then culminates in Cup and Show Week. Please help us sustain this initiative by prioritising it for resources so that the annual Spring River Festival becomes a significant feature of the events calendar and an important part of the recovery of the East and the natural environment. Cheers.
Thank you, Evan. That was actually a really good budget submission. Or it should have gone to the Budget Committee or perhaps in terms of events to the Community Committee. However, you've just had a really good chance to influence the entire council at the time when we're starting the budget. So we'll continue through the remainder of the last couple of minutes. Is there any questions? Paul, then Jimmy, then David.
One question. Have you applied the funding from City Council, this kind of under the category of festival or event, am I right? And due date will be the end of March.
Yes, we applied in 2012 for funding. We received $4,500, I think, or $5,500 from the Metropolitan Fund, and we had a shortfall, which we approached both the wards from the discretionary fund, which we topped up with about $2,000 from each. In order to make that festival happen, I had to personally underwrite it to the tune of $30,000 to make it happen, and we didn't know we had funding, in fact, until after the festival happened, and we managed to put all the pieces together. Last year, we applied to council to get an events management team together and employ them professionally to do it. We applied for a grant for $75,000 from the Metropolitan Fund. We got not a cent. Probably didn't make a good enough case, I don't know. But it's been very difficult to access funding. Our funding has come from other streams outside of council. Okay.
I just want to thank you, Evan, for your presentation, and I really want to thank you for the work you're actually doing out there. You're doing a great job, and I'm a big supporter of these types of festivals, and especially actually work in the East. Two things. First is that you promote in your draft engagement protocol, Eastern Vision promotes a pathway for people, place and play, and prosperity to thrive in the East. Are you working with the coastal pathway people to perhaps connect so there's a greater integration right across the East?
Certainly have a relationship with the coastal pathway people, and you'll find some of the, I don't know whether you've got the events there that happened, you'll find some events happened in the Mount Pleasant area, and now there's real opportunity to use it. There's actually a coastal pathway there, yeah, and there's a lot of negotiation as well and discussions around making that pathway connect up around the estuary to other potential pathways along the river corridor. So yeah, absolutely, we see that all interconnected.
The other thing too, just a second part of the question, is that sponsorship is another obviously revenue stream that you can actually look into.
Sure.
Have you looked at sponsorship opportunities?
The first Both festivals were sponsored by Foodstuffs Community Trust. The first year they had a little bit extra in their kitty to do for earthquake recovery work, so we got 15,000 for that, and last year we got 5,000. We have had in-kind sponsorship from many organisations, providing traffic management plans, etc., pro bono. But increasingly we found last year that people are over the earthquake recovery generosity, and so it became a lot more hard work. We have had some assistance from some staff within SERA to try and make links with appropriate potential sponsors, but it's a difficult thing, because if council's not supporting it, that's one of the first questions they say, is council supporting this? Well, we're applying, we don't know yet. Okay, well, tell us when you do know, and that negotiation goes on till beyond the end of the festival.
Thank you, Evan, for your contribution today. My comment is more of a statement to probably the rest of us here, and that I think really our whole events management and events program and its place in the annual plan needs quite a review. Last weekend I was at the Sandcastle contest in New Brighton. There was 30,000 people, and that had minimal, if no, support from the city as well. So I think there is a need for quite an urgent review of our event management and its place in the annual plan as well. So well done for what's happening though, Heaven, in your organisation and its contribution to the recovery of the East.
Thank you. You mentioned before about red tape, and if you brought in an professional event manager, that a lot of their time can be wasted on red tape because you actually want them to execute the event. Can you give us an example of that? I've actually got 3 quick questions. This is just one. I mean, it's just 3.
I guess funding applications are very difficult in this protective process, trying to work out where you apply to, what committee you go to get some recognition. We've bounced around a few committees in the last couple of years trying to get some traction here. And so I guess the whole bureaucracy of getting all the ducks in a row to make a festival happen, it detracts. It's hard work as it is organising it, but getting all that, the funding and all the consents, all the going through the right channels, trying to find the right channels. An events management service probably has all of that, has the experience of that, so they can do it a lot quicker than a community organisation can.
With this organisation, you see a lot of organisations saying one-stop shops, but they are driven internally to be created, and then you get external users, and it just doesn't work because the internal version of a one person running a one-stop shop is totally alien to what's outside. If this organisation had someone, because I'm also thinking about non-financial assistance, that would work with you to take you through all, so whether it's consents, getting permission to use council land, all that type of thing, would that cut through a lot of the red tape?
There was kind of an attempt to do that to some extent, but I kept on getting rung by a different person each week saying, I'm your liaison person.
I'm thinking one person.
Yeah, this was meant to be one person. They said, I'm your one liaison person, but every week it was a different person. So, I mean, that's part of the problem. The other problem, I think, is that they gave the impression, and I might be wrong, is their job was to manage the processes and the funding. It wasn't there to support us. So we ended up having increasingly decreased expectations of what we could achieve until it gets to the point where it becomes a community fair rather than a festival.
So realistically, the one-stop shop is non-existent.
There are support people out there, and there's a great deal of many good frontline staff out there, but I think they get tangled in processes and bureaucracy.
Okay, thank you.
I just hear that this is about much more than, funding is a key element, but actually it's about how do we as a council embrace this concept and provide the support of the organisation to helping it to blossom. Is that, it's kind of...
I think so. It is, but at the same time, we don't want to become a political football in that process either. So I think it's about what priorities council has for its events program, generally in its strategy for events, and how much of that is in-house, how much of it is funded to be provided for externally, etc. So and I understand you're reviewing those kind of processes. So this has a role within that. But all I'm saying is that in that review process, please consider going outside of business as usual type of events, and please consider not just investing on events that happen in the central city.
Evan, two community boards are around this area. Potential for you working with them, so they are like the council working with us to get it going, is there? Can you do that?
And we did do deputations to both those community boards. But what it tends to do is actually fragments the whole process and actually multiplies the amount of time you've got to be involved by a factor of 4 or something.
Can I comment? That's really unfortunate. I think we need that process flowing, which is what we're saying.
Yep.
You've made councillors very aware of a budget issue and a logistics issue, and let me just suggest a number of ways of you dealing with this. First of all, if it doesn't happen on the 25th and 26th, and you will notice that whether it does, then you have the opportunity to present to the annual plan budget, obviously, or if you're stuck, you can come to the Metropolitan Grants Committee as well. And it sounds like your community boards would both like to support you on this if it doesn't happen to be in the budget. But you'll know that at the end of the month. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. For you, Evan, for being so good and putting money up yourself. Okay, right, the agenda.